Good morning, council members, staff, and members of the public. It is Tuesday, February 17th, and I would like to call this meeting of the Policy and Strategy Committee to order and begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Okay, 1 second, Councillor Moore. Can you hear us now? Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore is attending virtually today, and Mayor McLean-Weil will be here. She's just delayed, but she will be joining the meeting as soon as she can get here. Are there any announcements or acknowledgement or recognition from council members? Seeing none, we'll move down to public input. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak to council today? Please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, so we have 2 speakers, and I just want to remind those that are here today that public input is one of several opportunities for the public to engage with council. We ask that statements be respectful of other members of the public, staff, and council. When you come forward, please provide your full name and the community which you reside. If you have a question or concern that you would like to have addressed, then we also ask that you provide your email address or phone number on the form provided, and we'll make sure from staff that that is there. And the chair will respond to questions that can easily be answered. It's at the discretion of the chair to make this determination. If your question or concern cannot be answered by the chair, which is myself, then it will be handled as follows. We will email you with an answer to your question or a response to your concern. We may also contact you to get additional information or further clarification on the matter to assist us in responding. We'll provide a summary of answers and responses at a future public meeting, at a future council meeting under business arising from the minutes, and this will form part of the public record. In this way, we will provide the answers or responses to not only the resident that brought them to our attention, but to all residents of Modal. Statements or questions related to personnel or operations can also be emailed to our Chief Administrative Officer, Tom McEwen, who is to my left. So we have 15 minutes for public input today, and with 2 speakers, that gives you 7.5 minutes each to speak. If somebody would like to come forward to the podium, there's 2 speakers. Whoever wants to come first, you're welcome to come on up and speak at the podium. We ask you to speak directly into the mic so that Councillor Moore can hear, and if you need to raise or lower the podium, there's a button right in front of you that you can rise it up if you need to.
I'm fine.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. My name is Carmel Diggin, and I'm a resident of 265 Homestead Estates Drive, and that is the matter that in that community. Just so we can get you in the mic a little better. Oh, okay. And that's the matter that I'm concerned about. We live on a private road, which all the owners maintain and keep up to date, and Modal collects the taxes. The owner at 237 Homestead Estates Drive has been using 2 access points off the private road and has been approached about being included in the the yearly payment, of which he objects. I do acknowledge that this past weekend he has removed the trailer from one of the access points. The driveway is still there, along with the other cleared area. Our concern is going forward, if he has acknowledged he's not using it anymore, but again, our concern going forward, is this going to change in the next week, month, year? And also, they have their property for sale, and we have a further concern that perhaps a new purchaser would see this driveway and think that they can park things and use the private road and not have to pay a yearly amount. So we do have concerns about policing it. I do understand now that we can, in fact, if they start using the private access, that we can apply to get the fee instated for the new owner. So that's That's it so far. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward and bringing forward that concern. We actually are discussing, which I'm sure is why you came today, Homestead Estates later on in our agenda under Planning Department. And I'm sure at that time, staff and council members will be speaking to this. Our next speaker. And welcome. Please state your name and the community which you live, and if you need to adjust the podium, feel free to do so.
Hi, I'm Matt Glode. I live at 237 Homestead Estates Drive, Italy Cross. And the concern, as stated, the 2 access points, there's actually only one. I can't speak to how it got there, but I can speak that it will be removed. There is a culvert in place in the ditch, so all of that will be removed. I'm no longer using that as access point. The other, number 2 on the diagram, never was put in. It's just a flat piece of land, as the neighbors is the same thing. I did clear out some saplings in the forest, but that's on me. I can do that. Not using the private road to access our property. Our driveway is on municipal road, and that's how it's going to maintain. As for new owners, can't speak to that. But we should not be forced into a homeowner association when we're on municipal road. That's it.
We didn't even get a chance to vote for it either when the whole thing was coming about. Yeah, we were never asked from the start of the home association, we were never asked to join any meetings to vote yea or nay against it or have our say in it at the time of voting, which I know was only a year or so ago. So, yeah, we were never approached for that.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you again for coming forward. And as mentioned after the previous speaker, if you're going to stick around, we will be discussing this after our presentation this morning. We have at 9:15. We'll be discussing the charge area at Homestead. Thank you. Okay. And just a quick housekeeping item, because I know there's some new members, public members in our gallery this morning, that washrooms are located just outside the door and then to your left should you need to use the facilities. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming today and those that chose to speak at public input, and remind everyone that our public engagement website, engage.modl.ca, has information on upcoming open houses, workshops, and other events where you can share your thoughts and have your questions answered on various topics. You're also always free to contact your district counselor directly with any concerns. We'll move down to changes and approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Hubley, seconded by Councillor Bell. All those in favor? Opposed? Agenda is approved. And Councillor Moore, because I can see you, I'll look for your hand as opposed to calling you out separately. We have one set of minutes to approve, January 20th, 2026. Is there any errors or omissions, changes needed to those sets of minutes? Seeing none, we'll call those minutes approved. I've checked with staff and there is no business arising from the minutes. So we're going to move down to our presentations, and I'm just going to check with staff to make sure our presenter is here for the Osprey Village Enhancement Beautification Plan. Okay. So we will make use of the time and we'll move down to, move along in our agenda until our 9:15 presentation speakers arrive. We have no referrals from council, so we'll immediately go to staff reports, and we have the Planning and Development Department and the Increased Charge Area Homestead Estates Private Road Owners Association, and we have Norma Schaefer with the Planning Department to present this.
Good morning, members of council. So we've received a request from the Homestead Estates Private Road Owners Association to add a property to their charge area. Some background on it, this was just before council last year in early 2025. The request was brought forward to enter into the agreement with the association to collect the road maintenance fees. At that time, the petition was submitted with 77% of the lot owners in favor. And I have included a visual in the report, an image of the charge area, just a bit of explanation on the mapping. All of the light green properties do participate in the fees. There is a portion at the start of the private road, which is a municipal road. It shows the cul-de-sac there. That's kind of the end of where the municipal road ends. The subject property does have their main driveway off of the municipal portion of the road. And then there are two other properties at the start of the private road that both have the ability to access off of the municipal road. They're vacant properties at this time, so they were excluded from the charge area as well. So it was recognized by the association at the time that any property that had a primary access point or the ability to access off of the municipal road were not included in their charge area. So the association had their annual meeting in July, and at that point in time, they had discussed the additional property, putting in a couple of entrance points, and were agreed to go and discuss it with them, explain the purpose of the private road bylaw, that the fees were being collected, and that now if they are using the private road, they're required to be part, or they could be requested to be part of the association and contribute to the private road as they would be using it. When the request came to staff, as part of my processing, I always advise the landowner before the request comes to council. So I had sent out a letter in January to the property owners advising them that we received the request from the association, then it would be going forward to council to include them in the charge area. Explained the process, the request, and our bylaw. Section 13, I will point out, in the private road bylaw, specifically deals with charge exemptions. So it's basically stating that, this basically comes back to the point of what properties aren't required to be charged or can be exempted from a charge. So if you abut and have access to a public road, you can be exempted from the private road charge area. If you do not use the private road or if you do not have access to it. So there's three clear exemptions on how you're not part of the fee. Clause 2 of that section indicates that the municipality may later assess any property that was exempted if they appear to be using the private road. So we're here today because the request came forward that they were using the private road and they want to include them in their charge area. The association fees are $300 per property per year, which gets added to the spring tax bills. So I have included the budget figures. So we're here today to discuss this and have council's decision. The landowners have multiple times to me indicated they will stop using the private road, that the weather has impeded any physical removal at this point in time of any alterations to the land, but they've indicated that that will happen. In order for my processing for the spring tax bills, March 1st is the deadline for me to be able to move it forward for this spring's charges. So I'm looking for input from council.
So the question before us today is whether or not to include this property or not. That is the decision before us. So before we bring forward the motion, because this did generate some public input, I'll turn it over to council members to ask any questions or comments while we have Norma in front of us. We'll start with Councillor Hubley and then Councillor Brooks.
Thank you. Do we know if these residents have stopped using the road? Like, once they were informed that they shouldn't use the road if they're not paying the fee?
I can only go by what I've been told. So they've told me they have stopped using it. So it's not something that we drive out and patrol daily.
Were they aware that they needed to pay the road association fee in order to use the road?
As I indicated, it was brought to my attention that the association went to them after the annual meeting and explained
Oh, they did?
if they
Okay.
were using the yeah. And then I had conversations after my notification as well, so.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Counselor Brooks.
Do we require somebody in a situation like this with a piece of roadway going onto a private road, do we require them to blockade that at all or put stones down or something that would just make it beyond, I promise I won't use it, to it's not usable? Do we do anything like that?
I can only speak to another situation in the past that has happened. There has had to be a physical blockade or a removal so that it's not being used, so.
If I can just follow up, because it seems impossible for us to police it, and it seems trust is not always the best way to go. I wonder if it's something we may need to discuss to just, clearly, and had that homeowner talked about removing that road in the springtime? Is that what they were?
It was indicated to me that the culvert would be removed, and I believe they had indicated that at the public input as well. Whether or not, like that'll be up to council to decide on whether there's a timeline for them to do that or not. Unfortunately, I need a decision for March 1st for annual processing.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Counselor Reinhardt.
Thanks. I appreciate both sides of the issue. My question was around the timeline that was mentioned in your report, thinking that may be a way forward if it sounds like the property owner has indicated that they will remove the access. So if there was a deadline for that, perhaps that could be a way forward. So what would that look like?
So unfortunately, the deadline is March 1st because I need to have processing to get on the tax bills.
Counselor Oikel.
One of the lady that spoke first for public input mentioned something about that they could be charged later. That she just learned about that if it wasn't done now, that and they continued to use it because they have said that they wouldn't, and they're going to take out that culvert, which would then make a ditch there, so obviously they couldn't then. That they could be added later. Could you elaborate on that, please?
So the private road charges it's an annual charge. It's a once-a-year charge that gets applied to the spring tax bill. March is our processing to get that in. The request could come forward from an association at any point in time. So if they are exempted from the charge based on not going to use the road, and then it turned out that they did use it, the association could come back at any point in time throughout the year to ask for that charge to be reinstated or applied, but it won't happen until the next fiscal year. So we can't we can't add charges throughout the year. It's a once-a-year charge.
Counselor Burns.
Thank you. Norma, you might not know the answer, so I think the question might also be to the association as well. My question here comes largely to granted rights-of-way over the private lot. And really what I'm going to be getting at with my questions is, do they also have the right-of-way in which they have legal access over the private road, or was this just an encroachment that they were seeking out and could have been stopped that way? And really it flows to, do they have the right-of-way over that private road? So if we charge them, have we created a situation in which they would need to go out and get a grant of right-of-way to continue to use that private road to keep up with the taxation? So, I mean, my cursory look, I think, answered my question, but I know they have the right to use the public road just on the corner there, and it appears that the other road is just a little bit further up, like a loop on the front driveway. So, do they have the right-of-way to use the private road, and if so, or if not, would they be getting a grant of right-of-way if we impose the association fee on them?
That I don't know without 100% looking at the subdivision creation, yeah.
No.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I do believe that there are several past instances where I don't think a satisfactory resolution was made. I use the examples of a resident on Lazy River Road that had a dispute with individuals living in that neighborhood. Also on Botany Lane, where, same as this example, there was an alternate exit entrance from Conquerall Mills Road, and it ended up that they got into an argument where they ended up putting boulders in the road that was completely usable, and built their own driveway. And so where these type of situations continue to happen, I have a reluctancy to rule against the individual citizen. So I will be voting against the motion that is before us, because I feel that individuals who have the opportunity to develop a different route of travel should not be penalized or made to go into an association against their will.
What I'm going to do is ask that you put them, everybody who wanted to speak once has spoken. Will you bring forward the motion, and then we'll take further comments or questions? Councillor Bell, would you be willing to bring forward the motion to get it on the table?
Okay, but you will understand I will be voting against the motion, but I will do it on behalf of my colleagues.
I'll put it out to the floor to see if somebody else would like to bring forward the motion. Councillor Reinhardt.
To the Chair, Deputy Mayor Vino, and members of the committee, I move that the Policy and Strategy Committee recommend to Council to approve the addition of PID 60639242 to the Homestead Estates Private Road Owners Association charge area, and further that the Mayor and Municipal Clerk be authorized to sign an addendum to the private road maintenance agreement to implement the same, and I so move.
Is there a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor Burns. Further discussion on the motion. Councillor Brooks.
I guess just trying to thread this on Councillor Bell's comments. I'd like to see something where both parties were satisfied. So the boulder scenario in the past, where it's clearly not passable. However, that's a much lower cost to that homeowner than removing the culvert. And I understand the property is for sale. Is that correct? So they put down some boulders. It can't be used. The property is sold. The boulders are taken out. They join the home association going forward. I don't want to incur greater cost to somebody. Yes, they've said they're not going to use it. Okay, but that's my quandary, is how do we, come up with a policy also going forward that unusable means unusable, and not, we just needed to get this load in, and so we decided we'd use it once, and even though we said we wouldn't, that's what frustrates people, and so we want to try to do that and be sensitive to the homeowners. So, I'm struggling with it a little bit as well too, because what I would like to see is that the homeowner stands by their word, that we give them an opportunity to do this, and that we give you folks an opportunity to come back if this is not, and say no, they continue to use it, and then we're going to have to look at a policy going forward that might need a little bit of a tweaking. But today my feeling is, we shouldn't force the person, but we need to keep the avenue open. That's, I guess, my 2 cents.
Councillor Smith.
Just for clarification, if a decision is made today not to support this motion, and the property is sold and the use changes, can it come back under the new owner?
Yeah, absolutely. A request can come forward at any time from the association if they wish to pursue this again. And vice versa, if it was charged, the new landowner could come forward and say, I'm not using it, it's blocked, remove me. So it's there, the opportunity is there.
Councillor Bell.
I think that Councillor Smith has made the very option that I was trying to promote. I think that when we have a piece of land for sale, which may have different people a year from now or 6 months from now, let the decision come back to us then when a new group is present. Like, as Councillor Brooks says, I don't want to force someone into expenses that don't need to be incurred because different parties at different times think different things. And to say you take someone's word, you'd like to do that, but in one of the instances that I mentioned, in a recent visit, the road is plowed that was not supposed to be used, and the road that they said they were going to use when they were here at council has a foot of snow in. So I keep out of it. When the association wants to come back, I'll understand, but it was like at the time I said to the association, are you sure that this is what you want to do? And they walked away. So, and you can't expect our staff to be referees. You know exactly what incident I'm talking about. We have to deal with the situation at the time. So for now, I'll vote against it, but 6 months from now, I may very well support it.
Councillor Reinhardt.
Yes, so it does seem like there has been some back and forth, and it is clear from the photos that the road was being used. But it does also sound that there is a commitment from the landowner to not use those access points anymore. So yeah, I'm a bit hesitant to add them to the association. I would like it if we could put some mechanism in place to check on if he is, or if they are not using it or putting the work in that they've committed to. I don't know if there's a way we can put a date in to check on that. I don't know if it's feasible to have that done by March 1st because of the weather, but if we could just set a date that is reasonable, I would like that. And I just also want to add to the concern about future ownership, because I think that's an incredibly valid concern. When properties change hands, new owners don't know the history, and they could just be using the road, as they choose. So I think that's a really legitimate concern, but I don't think we can charge the current property owner for what a future property owner might or might not do. So I think if the property does sell and change hands, then it would be great to have this come back if the road is in use. So that's my comments.
Councillor Burns.
Thank you. What this is really coming down to me is whether there is granted right-of-way over the road or not. And I'm not allowed to give anyone an opinion on this because I would clearly be in a conflict as a councillor between the two parties. And so while I would look at this in my day job and more in depth, what would be important for me to vote yes to add them to the association would be a clear legal opinion in which they have a granted right-of-way over the road for which they are going to be taxed, or they would be given one as part of that if it doesn't exist. I can see that there's going to be an argument either way based on some parcel mismatches and things going on in there, not uncommon in these kind of situations as revisions to the lots happen over time. But unless I can clearly see that they have the granted right-of-way over the road, I would propose that the remedy here is likely that they don't use the road in which they don't have the right-of-way over, but I'd be unwilling to tax them for potential future use. I would like to see their use stopped if they don't have the right to do so. So my vote largely comes from that. And if presented evidence to the contrary on a different one, then I would certainly reconsider my decision.
So any further discussion before we go to the vote? Seeing none. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. All those opposed? Opposed is unanimous, so I'm not going to call each individual counselor. It's a unanimous opposition. So motion is defeated unanimously. We are going to move back to the presentation that was scheduled for 9:15, and we have the presentation title is the Osprey Village Enhancement Beautification Plan, and we have Nathan McLeod, the Senior Landscape Architect with Upland Planning and Design, to present to us here today. So please feel free to come forward, Mr. McLeod, and present at the podium.
Just a quick preamble. Nathan's going to present the Osprey Village Beautification Enhancement Plan. We had hoped to have this done last year, but due to some delays on both ends, it didn't get done. So we'll use this document moving forward for planning purposes, and Nathan can go over some elements of it, and by all means, council can provide input for us. Thank you. Thanks, Nathan.
Hello. Thank you all for the opportunity to present our work for the Osprey Village Beautification and Enhancement Plan. This has been a really interesting project, and the team at Upland has been really pleased to be a part of this, working with the municipality.
And I'm just going to interrupt you briefly
Yeah, sure.
and get you to just change the level of the microphone. It just makes it easier for those who come back and listen, and also for Councillor Moore, who's joining us on Teams. Thank you.
Okay.
And also, it would be good to have your presentation in front of us. We'll get that up.
That is it. I'm not sure why it's not. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's confusing.
And we didn't have the PowerPoint version, we just had a PDF?
Yep, that's fine. We should be able to do Control L, I think. Make it full screen? There we go. Okay. Take two. Thank you all for the opportunity to be here to present our work. This has been a really exciting project. Osprey Village is at the cusp of a transformation where it changes from a solely commercial development, as it was originally sort of foreseen, to one that is really a community where there's hundreds of new homes and really facing new opportunities and new challenges from what was originally intended. So like I say, this has been a really exciting project to work on. I'll give you a little bit of background. Really, this will just be a summary of the key points. I would encourage everyone to take a look at the plan in detail. As Dave mentioned, this is a project that started in 2024. So in the fall of 2024 and into early 2025, we did the first round of engagement, consisting of an open house, stakeholder conversations, as well as an online survey. And then over the past year, we've incorporated those comments into a draft plan. The first version of the draft plan was an internal draft for staff review. So after that, we made some revisions and refinements to the plan, resulting in a public draft that was presented online on the Engage Modal website over the holidays, so in December into January. And then we made some tweaks as well following that, and here we are with the final presentation. And so really, like I say, I'm mindful of the limitations of this presentation in terms of time and presentation length. So I'm really summarizing the key points of the plan. So really there were 4 big ideas that came out of this plan. So the first is more multi-use paths. So we'll go through them in detail, but just as a summary, grow a green network, make pedestrian improvements, and then key changes to unlock potential. So really we're thinking about new residents, but we're also thinking about existing businesses. We're thinking about new businesses. We're thinking about staff who work in the area and how to make this better for everyone and a real asset for the entire municipality. So here's a summary plan that sort of layers in all of those things, but we'll work through them in detail through these 4 big ideas. So the first is more multi-use paths. So building on the success of the Osprey Connector Trail and the Arthur Young Trail. So the yellow shows the existing trail network. So building on that, we see an opportunity that through the use of multi-use paths, and we'll see an example of what a multi-use path looks like on the next slide. But really, we can build on that and use that as a real network within Osprey Village for residents, for students, for staff, to be able to move more safely and actively throughout Osprey Village. So we see an opportunity that we can encourage active living. That can be part of the identity of Osprey Village, and we can build on the success of these trails and create a network within Osprey Village. So a few images here of how the multi-use paths could work. So this is a concept rendering of Nathan Cirillo Road facing Pine Grove Road. So using the wide right-of-way, we could add a multi-use path. This is shown surfaced in asphalt, where cyclists, people with strollers, people with mobility devices can move freely, as well as an additional sort of conventional sidewalk for folks who don't want to be using the same space as people possibly moving quickly on bikes. So improved public space amenities, benches and rest stops, plantings, unified light standards, an opportunity to expand your branding to banners on the light posts. And here's just sort of a cross-section showing how a multi-use path could work in combination with a typical sidewalk and the road right-of-way. The second big idea was to grow a green network. So we already have the asset of the power line corridor where the Osprey Connector Trail exists. There's also some municipally owned parcels that hang off of that are opportunity sites for future development of a park network. So we're thinking about this area as the future home of hundreds of new residents. And so thinking about how we plan for that and how we plan for folks to have green space to live, grow, and use. So just if we again build on what's there and build on the green space in the power line corridor, we have sort of conceptual, so these are very high level, but just to give you a sense of the opportunity of building growing a green network, we can start here around the municipal building. If that were connected with the multi-use trail, there's opportunity for there to be a bike repair station. There's opportunity for there to be a viewing platform next to the wetland. There's opportunity for connections to Stonemont, so it's integrated with the development around it, and with improved connections to the multi-use path network. Now we move as well to this sort of larger parcel here, which we've called the community commons. So huge opportunity site there in terms of connecting with the Welltide Community Hub and in connecting with proposed residential development up here in this area. So there's obviously going to have to be access roads for that development, and then the green space can be built into that plan. Sorry, let's go back real quick. And then again, this is a high level idea, but it gives you a sense of how the space could be used for things like playgrounds for different age groups, gathering plaza, multi-use building, amphitheater potentially. There's still space for lots of parking to make sure that it's easy for folks to get there, and with, again, with connections to the multi-use path network. There's also space for community gardens in the power line corridor with connections to the Welltide Community Hub with great visibility for Nathan Cirillo Road. And then as well, we just have a little thumbnail image here of improvements to the Lahave River Trail connector, the Osprey connector. So already that trail is great. It's a great asset and a great connector to the existing trail. But it is steep, so there's opportunities to improve that with regular rest stops and sort of a more formal viewing station at the point of the most dramatic view. Moving on into making pedestrian improvements. So in the past, Osprey Village has been primarily car-oriented, people driving to the shops. But in terms of making this more friendly for residents and staff and people who work here, students, et cetera, we're proposing pedestrian improvements, so as well as making continuous sidewalk improvements. That would include things like streetscaping, additional planting and landscaping, and probably most functionally important is improved pedestrian crossings. So these circles here indicate where we're suggesting there should be improved crossings to make it safer for folks who are on foot. And we just have a few images here to kind of talk about, well, first is sort of a quick win where there's quite a few traffic islands adjacent to Highway 10. Those have a lot of paved area now that's not particularly well maintained. There's some weeds and some of the concrete's broken. So that's an easy win to landscape those, but probably more functionally is looking at how those pedestrian crossings could work. So we've kind of shown a few different ways that that could be coordinated. Obviously, that's going to take some coordination with the province and with adjacent landowners. But in terms of exploring the options, really often at the heart of making pedestrian crossing improvements is shortening that distance so that pedestrians aren't exposed to traffic for so long. So it's really about narrowing that, making it clear where pedestrians walk. And so one example is curb extensions where the curbs come in closer. So you're really kind of narrowing the path for cars so that you're making the crossing shorter for pedestrians. So one is curb extensions, so sort of bringing in the sides of the road. Another is refuge islands. So if we take some of the space that's currently painted off and using that as a refuge island, then people who are crossing, they do have a sense of they can stop here, wait for cars, and feel safe as they're crossing the street, even if you don't have the same curb extensions, as the previous option. And then the fourth big idea was a few key changes to unlock potential. So one is the community commons. So thinking about that green network, obviously that's going to take some work to start planning for that. It's going to take some detailed design to reach the full potential of that green space. But that is really a key asset for Osprey Village and a real opportunity. So that's one of the key changes that really could unlock potential for future residents and making it more appealing for commercial investments as well. Another is truck access. So we heard from business owners that it's a real challenge for delivery trucks to get into the rear of the buildings. And so if we're talking about narrowing crossings, obviously that appears to make a conflict. But there is an opportunity to provide truck access from Cook's Lane. So if there's a formal driveway there specifically for truck access, then we're getting those trucks out of conflict with pedestrians at those intersections that we're hoping to improve. So that's another key change that's really going to unlock potential and going to remove the conflict between truck deliveries and pedestrian access. Along with that is improving ATV access. There's already quite a bit of ATV use on the existing trails, but if a road trail was negotiated with the province, then ATVs can legally get down to the carpool parking lot for loading and unloading on trailers. They can also access the businesses legally by traveling along this road trail. And again, unlocking potential and in terms of folks who use their ATVs and improved traffic to businesses. And then finally, the LaHave River access. So there's an opportunity to provide an additional connection to the LaHave River Trail. And then there's kind of 2 points down here and as well as over here so that people can start to make the loop. And there's more convenient routes to use this trail and make trips here and there based in Osprey Village. Just a few, this is a slide summarizing some of the graphic components or the graphic identity of the changes that we're proposing. We're building off the existing aesthetic here at the municipal building and the existing signage around Osprey Village. So we're building on that by kind of formalizing some of the materials and the look in close cooperation with your Parks Department and the benches that they've already used elsewhere. So using a weathered wood look that can be in recycled plastic. Also using matte black, that's sort of a color that's already used in benches in the municipality. Sorry, skip ahead here. Picking up some colors from the existing Osprey Village brand. We're trying to build on that. And as well, picking up the font used in the brand as well. So trying to work with what you already have in terms of the brand and kind of formalize that so you can use it on other signage elsewhere. Making use of the Osprey logo mark. And then in terms of site furniture, building on what the Parks Department is already using, but adding in dining tables. I can't remember if that's already in use or not. But choosing a matching recycling receptacle, formalizing a light standard, again, building on the colors in the Osprey Village brand, but having a unified planter that allows you to provide landscaping even in kind of tight areas where you might only have sidewalk. And then as well, just building on the typical bench and typical picnic tables, adding in some loungers for spaces where people can spend more time in larger green spaces. So that was a again, that was really the high points, so those are the big ideas. There's a lot more content in the report. But if folks have particular questions or want to revisit anything that I've presented, absolutely, I'm happy to entertain those questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. McLeod, for bringing that forward today. Council won't be making any decisions at this time, but this is an opportunity to ask questions while Upland is here. So we'll open the floor and begin with Councillor Brooks.
Thanks for coming in with your presentation. If you could just go back to your slides on the pedestrian crosswalk. How much data have you collected to date to see how many pedestrians we've currently got walking across that? Have you done quite a data collection on that yet?
No, that really would require having pedestrian counters. So it's really hard to gather that information unless you start over a defined timeline to measure how many people are walking.
Would that happen before we went forward with any of these plans?
You could, if you wanted to use that data, you absolutely would have to gather that. I think based on what we've heard from folks in the public engagement and kind of knowing where different things are located, we know that some of these are priority crossings where people want to go. So in terms of future development, future residents, how people already want to use the site, I think you can make a very informed decision as to where those should go. But if you wanted to have that traffic information on foot traffic, you would have to start recording that.
It's my concern that quite often these projects are built in a back room.
Right.
And when I hear words like it's going to be shrinking the driving space for the road, for the cars that are going there, I understand intellectually that we want to have safe passageway for our pedestrians. My thought is, how long is it going to take before we have that number of pedestrians, and are we going to infringe on the many for the few? And so I personally would want to see some numbers on data before we just impose a plan over something that already has a natural flow to it. That would be concerning to me. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point. These are crossing improvements that we've seen in other projects that we've been involved in. So really, it is narrowing the driveways. It's narrowing the lane to sort of the minimum. Often they're oversized to begin with, so we're really kind of trying to find a balance where the vehicle use and the pedestrian use are valued more equally. So we're trying to see it as a win-win rather than a negative for vehicle users. But I understand your point, definitely.
Councillor Smith.
Further to that point on numbers, I was just wondering if you had numbers in mind when looking at this plan. Like, I think it's really important for people to understand when we're looking at this that we're projecting a significant population boost in that area. So do you have a projection, like current population, expected population in 5 years? What are we growing for? Because I think that, essentially we are building a village here, and we're trying to make sure that the infrastructure is there so that it's a healthy place where people want to live.
Yeah.
But I don't think sometimes that message gets out about just how many homes are going in.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm just going to flip back here to the overall plan. So you've already seen some of the development take place, right? So you've seen Stonemont, you've seen sort of the numbers there, you've seen the development taking place over here. To my understanding, the plans are still kind of in flux for these lands here, this land here. So until we have sort of more definite subdivision plans or proposals from developers, it's hard to actually quantify the total number. I mean, you could probably figure out a range, and maybe these plans have advanced since the last time we looked into it. Maybe they've been advancing. Maybe they're at a much more advanced point than the last time we sort of saw the concept plans. But I think it would be helpful for folks to kind of understand the scale of the development that is potential.
And Councillor Moore is joining us on Teams, and she has a question. Go ahead, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. This is more a question for staff. So this enhancement, if we was to do planters sidewalks and trails that we would own that infrastructure, correct?
I'm seeing a nod from Mr. Waters, but he's going to come up to the mic and further answer that question.
Yes, that would be the District of Lunenburg's infrastructure.
Okay, so we don't have a public works department, so we would be putting out tenders for the maintenance and the plowing and that kind of stuff, right?
100%. As you've seen in your capital plan, the sidewalks are already planned to go in, and we will definitely have to maintain our own sidewalks.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor McLean-Weil.
Yeah, a few comments, or maybe I'll just start with the questions, and I can save the comments till maybe after. But the Lehigh River access point, given that we already have the connection made, albeit twisty, very steep, I would suggest that it's really mostly only used by ATVers because it's just so steep. I just wonder about the Lehigh River access point, what that looks like in terms of accessibility for particularly walkers or cyclists who may want to connect with some of these key points.
Yeah, and it's still steep. It's not as steep there, and really how steep it is kind of a function of how long you make it or how many switchbacks there are. But there's no question there's a significant elevation change to kind of overcome there. But in terms of where folks want to go, obviously there's going to be folks who want to go travel between the town and the municipality, between the town and Osprey Village. That makes a much more direct route, whereas before you almost have to backtrack to use the very steep trail, and then you're on the trail, and then you can go. So it is still going to be steep. It's not as steep there, but it is still always going to be quite a grade change to get down to the river level.
And just, if I may, Madam Chair, the issues about the numbers of people, to Councillor Brooks's point, I think this is a concept plan, and we have to think about what is in the future development here. And if you think about what's already gone in and will be opened up in within the year, Stonemont, both the apartments and the assisted living, but also our development here just across next door to the Best Western. It's very disjointed how people connect to the various elements that are here. It's not pretty, folks. We all know that. So I think there are probably some basic things we should do, whether it be in landscaping or lighting, or we know we've already planned for the sidewalks. But I think the idea of what we need to do to make it a community look is really critical. And that may not be in the next year or year and a half to 2-year budget years. But the idea of how we enhance the look of this for the people that are going to live here and be permanent residents, because, you know, if you're in those two facilities next door at Stonemont, you look out, there isn't much to look at besides commercial development. There's not really a green space. And I think ideally when this area was created, it wasn't intended to be a residential community. It was intended to be a commercial development and industrial park. And it's not that now. And it still looks like an industrial park, a light industrial park. So I think we really do need to think about how we plan out what this is going to look like. It is not ideally the way it should have been planned, let's be honest. And so we're adding in the hardscapes of landscaping and pedestrian flow after the fact, when it should have been added and planned for when all of this started. So we may as well just say that this is a bit backwards, and we're trying to catch up. And I don't think we can describe it any other way. So, but I do think we need to make it more attractive. It is not pretty when you're in those buildings next door, or when you're over there. It may be pretty when you look towards the west and you're looking out on the woods and and the trees next door, but looking this way, it looks very much like a shopping mall.
Councillor Bell.
In the representation that you have given us, I noticed that there's residential lighting instead of institutional lighting for street lighting. It sounds like a small thing, but to me that is a gigantic advancement in just the way the neighborhood looks. I know it would be more expensive, but I would surely support that. And I do believe that we have to try to get it away from a commercial look to more a residential look. And as been mentioned, really, the greatest amount of investment in the last couple of years has been residential. So at the time, there was discussion about making the street wider for bike lanes. We thought, oh, that would cost too much, and we missed an opportunity by saving a little bit of money because of the width of the right-of-way. So now we're doing catch-up, and I just wanted to mention little things like lighting is very important. And I'm not really sure that we planned our lighting to be what you have shown.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions from councillors? Councillor Smith and then Mayor McLean-Weil.
Maybe this is a question for Mr. Waters, but just going forward, you know, there was, you know, a large amount in our budget for Osprey. I'm just looking at Osprey Village Sidewalk Enhancement Project construction. So I just wonder if it could be clear, like what part of this concept plan are we working on in the coming year? And will we see like a broken down costing for the concept plan so that we understand where the money goes, or
That's
just some
actually a
details
better
moving
question
forward?
for Stephen.
Yes, Councillor Smith, we're working on the design now for the tender for the sidewalk project down Pine Grove Road and up Nathan Cirillo, as well as the traffic signals there. And we have over 5.1 million, I believe, in the capital budget for that project. And that project will, it comes from a variety of funding sources, and so we are allowing for some accessibility features with that, including park benches at certain locations around for that part of it. But beyond that, we haven't allowed for planters or street lighting. We did a few years ago add, I think, 23 street lights around Osprey Village, but that was just putting them on poles, power poles. And that was a cost around $25,000. We had to put 3 additional poles in. So there is street lighting, but it's not attractive street lighting like a residential kind of area. So before that, there was no street lighting. So, but beyond that, there's not a lot of beautification features included. Right now, it's just the sidewalk, the park benches, and the traffic lights.
Mayor McLean-Weil.
It really brings my point up is that this is a project that now has spilled over to engineering, economic development, and park should be part of this. And I'm not sure from an organizational point of view how all those departments are working together on this, but I hope that's the case, because there are elements here that are really need work and expertise from all departments on this one, because when we start talking about the lighting, the seating, the accessibility, it becomes a multi-department approach. So there's a lot of work that needs to go into this to make it really, I think, what we want it to be. And the other point that does concern me a bit is it's a little like our Saw Pit Wharf project. When we start to involve a big discussion about a plan, we build expectations that then become unrealistic. And I think I don't know what the answer is, but I hope when we come back to further discussions on this and we have similar concept projects, we generally think about what is it that we realistically are prepared to spend, and then attach some numbers to that, so that we don't get projects that are so out of line with what's reasonable for our pocketbook. And I know there's a balance there between what's realistic to do for us over a 10 or 15-year period. But we talk about putting sidewalks in, and it's $5 million. Well, that's just one little piece of it. And adding to this is like a 25-year project, potentially. Anyway, I don't want to sound grumpy, but it's the expectations with our public of what is realistic for us to do. When we ask them for their opinion, and they give it to us, and they think it's going to happen in the next couple of years, and it can't. So.
Up next, we have Councillor Bell, then Oikel, then Burns.
Thank you. It's interesting when you mentioned that there is no plan for conduit piping at the same time you're doing the sidewalk. We have a reputation on Nathan Cirillo where we saved $60,000 to spend $400,000 to upgrade the size of the pipe 2 or 3 years later. On the upper end there where we undersized the wastewater line, or digging up a new parking lot to put conduit under for EV chargers when the parking lot was only a year old. These are the kind of things I have a hard job to justify to my constituents. So I would rather take an extra year or two to get street lights up if I knew I was doing it what I consider in the right, proper manner. So if we have to spend a little bit less, a little bit extra putting conduit under the concrete sidewalk while it's there, we may not have the street lights for a while, but at least we'll have the conduit for when the time comes to do it in the right and proper manner. So I don't want to be torpedoing an idea, but I think it comes back to what the mayor said. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. It might take a little bit longer, but in the long run, we may be not spending as much by doing it right and in steps. That's only my point of view.
Councillor Oikel.
Thank you. And in going along with that theme that is now coming out, is I really like the idea of the bike lanes, and mostly I'm thinking of senior motorized scooter lanes. Because I'm in a community where there is no sidewalks and seniors are using motorized scooters very dangerously on the side of the road in the Wildville area. And I'm just wondering, Stephen, whether or not we put in the sidewalks, will there still be room on the other side? Or will we have to purchase land from the landowners that own that property in order to put in that idea if we choose to do so in the future?
Yeah, I think that would have to be looked at. I think it's going to be close because there's only so much in the right-of-way, and then to allow that plus a wider laneway would be probably a challenge in some locations at this point.
Councillor Burns.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and there is a lot of wonderful work in here, and really my thoughts are coming down to we have a responsibility in some ways to plan for residents who aren't here yet as we look, to the mayor's comments as well about we're creating this village, and we need to sort of play catch up with residential amenities in what was not originally a residential area. And then the second part is we have an obligation to residents who are here now, and what I primarily hear from them for what they want to see in the area, largely relates to safety features off Pine Grove Road and lights and stuff that we're working towards there. So I just wanted to throw this plug in that, yes, it is great for us to have a vision for the future. We need to do that. And we also need to not delay or take our eyes off the ball on an issue the municipality is working towards with a couple of different jurisdictions to improve some safety at Nathan Cirillo, Pine Grove Road, Walmart intersection there. And so as that stuff comes forward, let's make sure that we bring that to a resolution, because the residents who are here now are largely asking me for that. And I'd be happy to continue to bring that to council. And let's not slow that down as we sort of look at the larger picture of what we're doing here.
Any further discussion? Well, thank you, Mr. McLeod, for coming in today and presenting to us, and for staff for providing additional comments and questions to council members. We're going to take a brief 5-minute recess to allow our next presentation to come forward, and that will be on the Nova Scotia Fire Services Government Study. So 5-minute recess, and then we'll return with that. Thank you. All right, continuing along in our agenda, under staff reports and administration department, we have the Nova Scotia Fire Services Governance Study, and Tom McEwen, our CAO, will be leading us in the discussion. And we also have Chris Kennedy in the room and other senior members of staff should questions or comments arise.
Thank you, Chair. So this is it's a presentation, and we're using the information that's presently available to us as it relates to the Nova Scotia Fire Services Governance Study. There's likely to be more questions than we can answer because the government has not provided us with all of the information which would be necessary to really do a thorough and complete review of the information. I would like the information that's presently available to us of the District of as it relates to the Nova Scotia Fire Services Governance Study. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. It started in April 4th, 2025, has not provided us with all of the information issuing an RFP necessary for the conduct of a governance review for fire prevention review and of the information. I would like the information that's not presently available to us. The study proposed the modernization of fire services governance. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. It started in April 4th, 2025, provided us with all of the information issuing an RFP for the conduct of a governance review for fire prevention. So we don't agree that I would like the information that's not presently available. So the study proposed the modernization of fire services governance. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. It started in April 4th, 2025, provided us with all of the information issuing an RFP that we agree. So the study was initiated due to increase in complexity and response that I would like information not presently available. So the study proposed the modernization of fire services governance. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. Started in April 4th, 2025. Don't necessarily take all of the information issuing an RFP that we agree. So the study was initiated due to increase in complexity and response that I would like information not presently available. So the study proposed the modernization of fire services governance. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. Started in April 4th, 2025. Don't necessarily take all of the information issuing an RFP that we agree. So the study was initiated due to increase in rural municipalities have a separate. I would like information not presently available. So the study proposed the modernization of fire services governance. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. Started in April 4th, they don't necessarily fire service issuing an RFP, but the study was initiated due to increase in rural municipalities exercise. I would like information not presently available. So the study proposed the modernization of fire services. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. Started in April 4th, they don't necessarily fire service issuing an RFP, but the study was initiated due to increase in rural municipalities exercise. I would like information not presently available. So the study proposed the modernization of fire services. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. Started in April 4th, they don't necessarily fire service issuing an RFP, but the study was initiated due to increase in rural municipalities exercise. I would like information not presently available. So the study proposed the modernization of fire services. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. Started in April 4th, they don't necessarily fire service issuing an RFP, but the study was initiated due to increase in rural municipalities exercise. I would like information not presently available. So the study proposed the modernization of fire services. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. Started in April 4th, they don't necessarily fire service issuing an RFP, but the study was initiated due to increase in rural municipalities exercise. I would like information not presently available. So the study proposed the modernization of fire services. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. Started in April 4th, they don't necessarily fire service issuing an RFP, but the study was initiated due to increase in rural municipalities exercise. I would like information not presently available. So the study proposed the modernization of fire services. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. Started in April 4th, they don't necessarily fire service issuing an RFP, but the study was initiated due to increase in rural municipalities exercise. I would like information not presently available. So the study proposed the modernization of fire services. This is an initiative of the province. There's likely to be more questions. Started in April 4th, they don't necessarily fire service issuing an RFP, but the study was initiated due to increase in rural municipalities ex would like to study proposed water That's the fire That's the fire That's the fire
hold tight for a minute or two to try to get an update on that. So for anyone that, we'll just take, a minute or two, sometimes the system just needs to, we'll just
We're having issues with our audio from the live stream. So sound is working fine in here, appears to be working fine on Teams. We're trying the tried and tested IT solution of turning off and turning on again, and we're going to see if that does anything. Yeah. Okay, why are you doing that?
And for those in the gallery, even if there is disruption to our live stream, it will still record and people can watch it later by clicking the link. So we haven't lost anything that was presented, but we will try to get the live stream up and running, especially as we know there's several people trying to watch online.
Yeah, I'm hoping that I will then hear myself again, and that will mean that it's fixed. Yep. I have it. I have the feed up with the volume on, so I should hear if it's fixed. I'm not hearing anything right now.
I can hear the whispering. Oh, do you?
What is that? All right, it appears we've resolved the stream issue, so we're just going to do some final resets, and then we'll we're going to start on the governance issue, Tom? All right, it appears we've resolved the stream issue, so we're just going to do some final resets, and then we'll we're going to start on the governance issue, Tom? All right, it appears we've resolved the stream issue, so we're just going to do some final
After that
resets,
brief
and then
technical
we'll,
issue, we're going to start back up with the review of the fire services transition.
All right, it appears
Again,
we've
this is the
resolved the
document
stream
that was
issue,
provided
so we're just going to
by
do
the
some
province.
final
After that
resets, and then
transition
we'll
issue,
Nova Scotia
we're going to
Services from a
start back up with the review of the fire services transition.
All right, it appears
Again,
we've
this is the
resolved the
document that
stream
was
issue,
provided.
so we're just going to do
Service
some
levels
final
after that
resets, and then
transition,
we'll
starting with government. We're going to start back up with the review of the fire services municipal.
All right, it appears
Again,
we've
this is the
resolved the
document
stream
that was
issue, so we're
provided.
just going to do some final
After that
resets, and then
transition,
we'll
starting with government, we're going to start back up with current review of the fire services municipal. Again,
all right, it appears
the current
we've resolved the
fire
stream issue, so we're
services
just
service
going to do
generally.
some final
After that
resets, and then
transition, starting with government, we're going to start back up with current review of the fire services municipal. Again,
all right, it
the
appears
current
we've resolved the
fire department, each key service station. After that, we're starting with the governor. We're going to start back out where they set out the government again. Currently, the fire department, each key service station. After that, we're starting with the governor. We're going to start back out where they set out the government again. Currently, the fire department, each key service station. After that, we're also governor. We're going to start back out where they set out the government again. Oversight of fire department, each key service station. After that, we're also governor. We're going to start back out where they set out the government again. Oversight of fire department, each key service station. After that, we're also governor. We're going to start back out where they set out the government again. Oversight of fire department, regulations. After that, we're also governor. We're going to start back out where they set out the government again. Oversight of fire department, regulations. After that, we're also governor. We're going to start back out where they set out the government again. Oversight of fire department, regulations. After that, we're also governor. We're going to start back out where they set out the government again.
Chief
Act itself, at Section 55, does allow for dissolution of commissioners by the minister on 90 days' notice. So on 90 days' notice, the minister can dissolve rural fire commissions, and the assets and the liabilities of those commissions go to the municipality in which they're situated in. And if the liabilities outweigh the assets, then there's an area rate put in place for the area that the fire commission serves to collect that deficit. So that's already in the Act. Again, we don't know what the plan is with rural fire commissions. What we've read through and everything that's in here doesn't seem to suggest there's a place for them. And so if the province is intending to dissolve them, it just takes 90 days' notice. There is a requirement in the notice that there could be objection to the proposal to be filed in writing with the minister within 60 days of the service of the notice. So there's not an opportunity to appeal, but there's an opportunity to have input. But that issue is specific to rural fire commissions. So, having taken up the majority of your morning, that's where we see from the information that we're able to access what's happening with fire services, or what's potentially happening with fire services in Nova Scotia.
It's a lot to take in. We understand what fire departments might be feeling. We're feeling it as council members. The timing on this and the load of information we're having to digest in such a short time frame. And for those that are in our gallery today and are listening, this recording and Tom's presentation can be viewed on our YouTube channel later, and we certainly encourage you to share that with other departments and your colleagues within. And if they're unfamiliar with how to access that, have them reach out to their counselor, and we'll make sure that they are provided with the opportunity to listen. So questions or comments to Tom on the presentation? Is there any at this time? Councillor Brooks, then Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Tom. One of my concerns about this rollout is the gaps that are going to happen, because so much of this is coming without funding. So we're going to have levels set that can't be achieved immediately. To your point about joint services not being able to join a fire call because of that, a lot of that could really extrapolate out into constituents who thought they lived in an area with a level of service, realizing that is no longer going to be the level of service. How is that going to relate to somebody's property value?
So assessment is done by Property Services Valuation Corporation. So whatever provision is in that legislation to impact assessment. But I think the bigger question is, are we going to have departments that have to close because there's level of service that they just can't meet, and their tax base isn't great enough to generate significant revenue or sufficient revenue to support that? Because if the area rate can't support it, then the general tax rate has to support it. And then you get into discussions about rationalizing of fire departments, which never goes well. And so it's a slippery slope. I don't necessarily think that having fire service based upon risk assessment and community profiles is bad, but it has to be done in a way that works for both the department and the resident and the municipality. And there's just that level of thought and review just doesn't seem to have happened here.
It's just the city-centric view trying to have an overlay over our community without the money to do that. And this is just so you folks know, this is so far from the only thing that we get handed down by the province. This is one that touches all of our lives, and we're very, very concerned about it. And I think that that's my concern is, yes, there are things that we can address in this to better support our volunteer fire members to ensure that everybody has a level of service and safety providing that service. This is not the right way, and I hope that the conversation is going to continue to illustrate that, you know, we really may end up without some areas being protected. I will not support that.
Councillor Smith.
Thanks for the that comprehensive analysis. It went further into depth on some of the municipal concerns. And I've been talking with fire services in my area about their concerns, and I think a lot of the risks have been well represented, and I really appreciate that being on the record. I did want to put something else on the record. Fire services in my area are speaking up. I think that the point about this being an urbanization of fire services is key, and rural fire services are feeling like they are not seen, they're not understood, and they're not being asked at the ground level that they would appreciate consultation. So this is a statement from Chief Wilson from Cornwall and District Fire Department. And he says, our department operates effectively under the Rural Fire District framework. We are largely self-funded, well-equipped, financially stable, and supported by strong community engagement. From our perspective, we are not a system in need of restructuring. We are deeply concerned that the proposed changes risk removing fire departments from their community-based governance model and shifting toward a more centralized and commercialized structure. In our view, this would undermine recruitment, retention, local accountability, and volunteer engagement, all of which are already challenging in today's environment. Before proceeding with structural changes to local fire services, we respectfully urge the province to address existing systemic pressures that directly impact our operations, including ongoing challenges with EHS, electrical reliability concerns, Nova Scotia Power, and gaps in telecommunications infrastructure. So our fire services have been asking for improvements on cell services for years, and not seeing the emphasis on that in this report. These issues place daily strain on fire departments, yet remain unresolved. And Chief Wilson signs that we are not broken and we will not support unnecessary restructuring.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you. I can't believe this is happening. When we first heard this last week or the week before, and then getting this information, the province it's unbelievable. They're shoving this down our throat. They're making us look like a lot of the fire departments aren't going to realize that this is not us initiating this. I know that I have people in the galley there today, and sorry I couldn't be there, but thank you for coming. And we have to speak up. So every municipality, every fire department in Nova Scotia is getting this information, correct?
So I'm not sure what information is being provided to fire departments across the province. So the CAOs and senior staff in the region have been working on a presentation to go to all of our councils. So we're sharing similar or identical information, and we're encouraging that information to go out to our fire departments. But we're not really clear on what's happening outside of the region, but it's primarily a rural municipality. the impact is disproportionate on rural municipalities as opposed to towns.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're gonna have to, really get up in arms, write letters, and fire departments, will have to speak up. This is just unbelievable. I mean, like you said, and thank you for the presentation, there's some things in there that might be a good fit going forward, but this will bankrupt us. And we will not have volunteer fire departments. It's just unbelievable that the province is shoving this down our throat so soon when they only had the study done last year. They do nothing else quick. I mean, and now here they want us to have this, want this in place by September 30th, 2026. It's like unbelievable, unbelievable. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mayor McLean-Weil.
I think it is important for councillors to touch base with their fire chiefs in all their departments. And I know we have a lot on our agendas, everyone does, but I think this is really kind of a really key thing that we need to be in touch with our fire departments to know what knowledge they have, and if they don't have knowledge, to make sure that they get a chance to watch this video and get some information about what's happening. I did speak, I've had several conversations with Brian Kaiser at the Fire Services Committee, and to touch base through that with him and the committee. But I think that councillors individually should be in touch with their fire departments to at least find out what knowledge is out there in terms of our own fire departments across the district.
I don't see any other questions or comments from councillors, but just to kind of bring this back, I'm going to ask Tom, will you kind of outline where we go from here with what we know for those that are in the gallery and listening? We do have a meeting this afternoon, but I think it's important that we're sharing what we know with fire departments.
Thank you, Chair. So included in the information is a fire service modernization vision and roadmap. And then you can follow the history of what's happened. And then you see the star, which says we are here. And so implementation planning session held with municipal and fire services leaders. I believe that's what's happening this afternoon. And then we have unified provincial legislation regulations for fire safety services. Transition period begins 12 months notice. So the province is supposed to give 12 months notice to municipalities if they're going to introduce things which could impact us financially. We understand that they're going to give that notice in April 2026, which would allow them to introduce things that will cost us more money in April 2027. The framework is supposed to be established by September. We understand that there's a 3-year transition to put it in. So it's fairly advanced at this point. And one of the challenges that we have is the province's position is FSANS asked for this. So FSANS is getting what they want. Our continued question is, did FSANS really want this? Is this really supported by their membership? Is this really supported by rural fire departments? And if it's not, that has to be heard, because that's not the message the province is having right now. So advocacy is our best shot. So we'll listen this afternoon, see what the province says, and then go from there.
Just to add to the timeline, I think it would be really useful if councillors could commit over the next 7 to 14 days to check in with their fire departments and then feed that back to me, so I have some knowledge of what the status is across the district, of what people know or don't know. So at least we have that information, and any other anything else you want to provide. I think that might be helpful for us from an advocacy point of view.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, is it my understanding as well that Lunenburg Regional will come up with an advocacy or position on this? Because that's the collective voice of our departments in the county.
Chris Kennedy, our fire services coordinator, is just coming forward to answer that question.
I can't speak on behalf of them, but I know that they're having a meeting this Thursday night, and that's going to be a topic of discussion. And I'm meeting with the executive prior to that meeting to have a discussion on the same presentation that was given here, because there is concern out there without a doubt. Thank you, Tom, for that very in-depth presentation, and that's kind of where it's at right now. So there are a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of concerns, and up until this point, fire services have been very quiet across the province on this process. And there have been engagement and information has gone out to departments, but I don't think anybody really had the background or the insight from the presentation that was given here today and some of the things that go along with that. So yeah, I think it's something that definitely needs to be discussed, and hopefully it's not too late to voice opinions, because it definitely is something that we have to do, both as fire services and as municipalities and as council, because there's huge change there. They had 2-hour presentations when they did this engagement process with fire service leaders. Chief and deputy chiefs were asked to come to these 2-hour sessions, and you can see from what the presentation was here today that a 2-hour session just barely touches the tip of the iceberg to get feedback and stuff on this. So it's really important. So that meeting Thursday night is critical. Hopefully all fire service chiefs and members can try to attend that meeting. It's going to be here. I'm going to send an email out after this meeting to try to get more input and get more uptake on the fire services, because the meetings we've had across the county, I think there was 13 out of 23 that approved, that actually went to these meetings, and it's been like that across the province. So anyway, I'm not sure where the information is derived from that drove this after the study or through the study process, but it's very alarming of where it's at and where it's going. That's just my opinion.
Any other speakers on this topic? Okay. While we're concluding this topic today, it's not the last time you'll see it come forward, and we will share that information as we can. Moving along in our agenda, we have no mayors, deputy mayors, council matters, no added items, no in camera. So we'll conclude our meeting today, and I want to thank again those that came today in our galley to listen to the presentation and those that are following along online. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Committee is adjourned.